Welcome to the Nerds Domain presents Masks of Neraltep. Join us each week as our investigators follow a path of clues and attempt to save the world from an ancient evil. Starring John Quiett, Justin Kimmett, Shirley Nedswicki, George Chipples, Jason Hall, and Scott Troiano, with me, Matt Quiett, running the table as the Keeper. Eldritch evils and crazed cultists await you just beyond this music.
Welcome to the Creation Podcast. I'm sitting here with Jason. Say hi, Jason.
Hello.
We're going to go through the creation process. Jason has a good concept that we're going to start with, and that's really where I like to start with Cthulhu. Cthulhu is a role-play based game and not a combat-based game, so a concept helps fuel that role play. So Jason, you've got your concept. Let's hear a little bit about it. Start with your name, because that's kind of important.
My character name is Alexander Wentworth. He's a professor specializing in archaeology and anthropology, basically the study of culture and history and the cultural artifacts that go with it. His parents were also professors, since people in that field tend to be a legacy. They mysteriously disappeared, because after all, this is the Cthulhu universe.
Yep.
His study of their journals is what led him in his direction as far as profession and his schooling. He found a lot of references to things like old gods and whatnot, but He has not picked up on the subtext of the Cthulhuoid influence of that.
Okay.
He's a professor at Harvard in Boston. Been there for a few years after coming back from the war. Not really a 20s man. He's, the scrawny professor type, more of a brain than a brawn.
Okay.
He presents as basically Western European, kind of typical Englishman, but he's American.
Okay.
It's still early enough in history for that to matter.
Okay.
WASP ancestry, but not necessarily religious. But, yeah, I mean, that's him in a nutshell. You'll find him wearing tweed jackets and stuff more than you will, battle harness or anything.
Okay. All right, well, we're going to walk through the 6 steps of creation. We're going to do them a little out of order just because I think it works a little better. And we're going to apply an optional rule to allow us to kind of modify some numbers in the end. So let's start with step 1. You're going to roll 3d6 5 times, and you'll probably want to write these numbers down as you go. These will apply to strength, constitution, power, dexterity, and appearance. So, yeah, I understand that the top does not go in any order, but the way they have it set up makes a little bit more sense as you get used to it.
13.
Okay.
12.
Okay.
15.
Okay.
This is why you use real dice.
Yeah.
17.
There you go.
And 12.
All right. So, power is your force of will. It's just your personal force to push through things mentally. Strength, constitution, dexterity, appearance, that's all pretty standard. Appearance is a first-time thing, because there are skills for everything beyond that first interaction.
But I'm not really worried about appearance, because he's more of a bookworm and doesn't really care about the social aspect of things.
Okay.
So we'll make appearance at 12, just to jot down one of those. Strength, con, dex, and power?
Yes. Power would probably be something you'd want a lot of.
Yeah.
It's going to help your sanity a lot. Just a heads up. And you're going to be able to move some of these points around later, so even if you put a 15 in strength, which doesn't make any sense for you, we can figure that out later.
Alright, I've got a 12 in appearance, 17 in power. I'm going to go with, I'll say 15 dex, 13 con, and 12 strength.
Okay. The next thing we're going to do is you're going to roll 2d6 and add 6, and this is you're going to do it twice, once for strength, or once for size and once for intelligence.
16.
Okay.
And 15.
Okay. So your intelligence is probably going to be the higher of the two.
Yeah.
So
So 16 intelligence and what was the other one?
Size.
15.
And I know that the description you gave me says you're 5'10". We'll work that out. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, I have no idea what the 15 means.
You're pretty big. You're not tiny guy. So, and then
I'm wiry.
yeah. The last step that you roll is 3d6 plus 3, and this is for education. This is a big one you want. Which again, this is okay because we're going to shift some points around.
15.
Okay, is that plus 3?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's fine. 15's higher than average, ish.
Yeah, probably one higher though.
So before we do anything else, we're going to move some points around. So you can take up to 3 points from any one stat and move it to any other stat, up to 3 times.
Okay, well, I'll lose strength because I'm not going to need it.
Yeah. I'd also suggest that you lose size eventually.
Yeah.
So
strength, size.
And your education can't go above a 21, and everything else can't go above an 18.
I can't put multiple dump stats
that's
into
fine.
one.
You can.
Oh, you can?
Mm-hmm. Especially for your character, having a strength and a size of anything more than average doesn't make a ton of sense. So
I will put the strength and size points into education and make that a 21.
That's perfectly fine. You also might want to up your intelligence.
Yeah, I was thinking of dropping a couple dex points for it.
Okay.
And can I drop like 2 points from one and
No, because since you did the strength and the constitution, strength and size, this would be your third one. That would be it. So.
Okay, yeah. All right, I'll drop dex down to 12.
Okay. Still higher than average dex, which is great.
And have a 19 intelligence, 17 power, and 21 education.
Your intelligence can't go above 18.
Oh, shit.
So, sorry about that, but yeah, I've kind of put you at the top. So, I mean, put it in 18, and I'll put your dex, I think, at a 13 then?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so now that we've done that, we're going to look at occupations, because occupations could change your stats a little more.
Okay.
So let's get to those. We are using the 1920s companion book for occupations and for weapons. It explains it out a little bit more and is a little more in depth. I'm going to get to the let's find the professor. Just
so nobody running around in mil-spec clothing and AR-15s with 4X holographic sights, huh?
Yeah, no. Well, where is it at? It's here somewhere. And the thing about the profession is it's going to give you access to what's called occupation skills, and those skills are what you're going to take your education times 20 and put points into those skills. So your education being high is good. Then after that, you'll take your intelligence times 10, and those are personal interest skills, so you can put those anywhere at all. So if you want to be able to punch people in the head, that's fine.
Not really.
Doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense for you.
Yeah, this character is so much not about combat.
That it starts with scholarly pursuits there, and then you just flip the page, and there's more professor teachers on the next page. But I don't know. Looking at the skills there, those are the skills that will be occupation skills. So looking under there should be an income. We're going to ignore that. Contacts, we're also going to ignore that. That's for homemade campaigns. We're using an actual pre-made adventure, so the stuff is already built in.
Skills, credit rating.
Credit rating's important. It's what people know about you and what kind of money you can pull. So people know you're a professor at Harvard. That holds a lot of reputation. So your credit rating should be a little high because of that. And then your parents were world-renowned archaeologists as well. So that would also factor in. Even if they're dead, that still tells people, oh, well, this guy is trustworthy.
I'm still a smart guy who's
his
kid was a smart guy.
Yeah. So if you run into the cops and they're like, oh, well, you don't know anything about archaeology. You're like, no, this is who I am. And they're like, oh, well, why don't you come in and tell us about what these symbols on the wall mean? Yeah. That's what that credit rating is going to really be.
So credit rating, English, library use, persuade, and 3 fields of study.
Yeah, so like archaeology, anthropology were the 2 you said.
And probably something cryptographic.
Well, and that might be on there, on the character sheet. And all the skills are listed there. There are a few that they don't list that are kind of off the wall. But maybe...
yeah, there's a blank spot where it would go.
Natural history would make sense. I'm trying to think of anything else.
Navigation would.
Navigation, maybe geology
Definitely.
So, I mean, there's a bunch of different things that you can do. Is that the field researcher there, though? Or are you looking at the professor?
No, I'm the professor teacher.
Okay, that's fine. I'm just going to say that there are other options. So you might look at the others. And then there's also a spot underneath the skills that says special. That really... No, I'm on in the occupation. I'm sorry.
Yeah, +2 to education and add 10 points to your credit rating.
So that +2 to education isn't going to mean anything for you.
Yeah.
Because you kind of have max education as it is. But that +10 to credit rating, I would be willing to bump that to a +20 since you're going to lose the education points. So that gives you a base much higher than normal. So that gives you a good place to start.
What do you use it for in game?
I'll tell you in the first scene that we'll go through is you'll come upon some sort of grisly scene, and you're going to have to convince the police you should be there. And you having a high credit rating means you're more likely, because it's all on dice rolls, that they're going to have heard of you, know that it's okay to give you information because you are trustworthy to do that with. Also, like if you're overseas and you're trying to book passage, you don't exactly have the money, but you could work something out with the boat captain. Well, yeah, you can talk him into it, but if you don't have the credit rating to back it up, it doesn't really matter. You know, oh yeah, when we get to France, you know, I'll have money waiting there for us. Doesn't really matter if they can't trust that you actually have the money. So,
yeah, I'll go with that.
Okay.
Professor. Shit.
That's fine. What you want to do is there are boxes next to all the skills. Don't mark that. That's for advancement, but put dots next to everything else that you should be trained in, or that you have as an occupation skill. Did it say language other on there?
No.
Mark that one as well. There's no reason you shouldn't have another language.
English library is persuade. I guess English is own language?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because I was like, there's no English here. Persuade, then 3 fields of study. Archaeology and anthropology are there.
Yep. And then whatever the third one is, I mean, you have a bunch of different options.
Art, yeah, totally. History.
Yes.
That would
Okay.
probably be.
And then mark your 10 points in credit rating, or the 20 free points in credit rating.
With the
Credit rating is alphabetical under skills.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a skill you'll still have to roll.
So put 20 down?
Yeah, add 20 to whatever is in the parentheses there.
Okay.
Alright, so we figured out your base stats. Now you're going to do some multiplication. You're going to multiply your power times 5.
Okay.
And that becomes your sanity, which is up at the very top. There's actually a spot under dexterity, I think.
Power times 5, okay.
Also write it in up at the top. There's a SAN, S-A-N. And then next it's intelligence times 5 is idea, and idea is right next to intelligence. Power times 5 is luck, and education times 5 is knowledge, which means your knowledge is actually a 99, can't go to 100.
But it was strength times 5 for sanity, right?
No, power times 5 for sanity.
Okay.
Yeah. Add your strength and size together.
Okay.
What's that number?
21.
21 does not give you a damage bonus, so you're not good at punching people harder. And then finally, under the 99 minus Cthulhu, you have no Cthulhu at this point, so it's actually just a 99. What that means is, for every point of the Cthulhu mythos knowledge skill that you gain, your maximum possible sanity goes down. So if you get a 1, now you have a 98 maximum possible sanity. If you get a 70, you have a 29 maximum possible sanity. Getting Cthulhu knowledge is great until you get too much. Keep in mind also that you can read about all the Cthulhu monsters you want, but the first time you see one, you still have to go through a sanity check. Knowledge does not equate to what that thing is in front of you.
Yep.
So if you get a 70 and you only have 29 and you fail, you're halfway to being insane. I mean, you're really close at that point. So next, we're going to determine your characteristic points, is what it says. You're going to take your constitution and your size, add them together, and divide by 2.
Okay.
Rounding up. and that is your hit points.
13.
Yeah, that's not so bad. You're doing pretty good there. On the magic points, you'll circle the number equal to your power. You've already circled your sanity, right?
Yep.
Okay. Next, we determine your occupation and skills. So, first thing you're going to do is roll a d10 and determine how much money you make each year. Higher is better.
9.
So you make $10,000 a year. It's on the second page. I'm sorry. So on the second page, just write $10,000 under income.
Okay.
Okay. So where would I go? Okay. So now you take your education, multiply it by 20.
Okay.
And that is the number of skill points you have to divide between your occupation skills. So you might want to write that down and keep track of it as you go. And
I've got 220 points.
No. 21 times 20 is
420.
Yeah. You've got a lot. Which is good, because you need to be good at anthropology and archaeology, and now you have other languages.
Hold on a second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 420 divided by 7, that's 60 points in each one?
Yeah, give or take. Before you just do that, let's talk about this.
I'm not going to. I'm just saying,
No, but that's a good point.
My average would be 60.
The couple of things to keep in mind is, one, 2 skills at 35 do not equate to a 1 skill at 70. You want a skill at 70 instead of 2 skills at 35. Yeah. Anthropology and archaeology you probably ought to have at 75 or above. Mm-hmm. Also, your natural history. You have a doctorate. You should have those at least 75. At an 80 would also make sense. You don't want to go above an 89, because I told you at 90 you get your sanity back. I know that's kind of game in the system. However, it doesn't make any sense.
Show me a gamer that doesn't do that.
Yeah, I mean, and it's really just, I don't want you to not benefit from a certain increase. Other languages, I know there's only like 3 lines there, or 2 lines.
3.
You can speak as many as you want. The percentage is how well you speak it. And if they're going to understand that you, and if you understand them. So if you have Spanish and it's at a 35%, you have your equivalent of high school Spanish there. But if you spent time with your family probably in the field.
Yeah.
If that means you spent a lot of time in Egypt, that means you may speak Arabic or Egyptian. If Egyptian's a language, I'm not sure.
No. The entire region of the Middle East speaks 2 languages, which is Pashto and Arabic something, I can't remember.
So either one of those would be acceptable, especially in the 1920s. So that's the kind of stuff. And you may have picked up some German or some French, because you're reading these books that you need for these doctorates. That
probably Latin.
Yeah, probably some Latin. All of that is absolutely acceptable. And there's how many languages in the world? So those 3 spots don't exactly equate to that. You could have more than 3, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Well, there's like 100.
Yeah.
12.
Well, there's like 80 in India in dialect alone.
Well, I'm not counting dialects. Jesus Christ,
So just look at that before you go too crazy. Also, to the left of all, or right next to all of this, the skill names, there's a base skill in parentheses. Mm-hmm. That's where you start. So whatever you add to that, and you go up from there. So like anthropology and archaeology start at 1 because they're highly trained to know anything. So you're going to be highly trained, but you'll still just start at that 1.
All right, I'm going with an 80.
Okay.
For anthropology and archaeology. So that would be 81, I guess.
Yeah.
History starts at 20%.
Yeah. Everybody knows a little bit about history.
Yeah, we'll go with the 60 there. Make it an 80.
Okay.
Which means I've still got 200 points.
which is more than some people started with.
Yeah, I imagine the people who were all like, I'm going to be Johnny Two Guns.
Well, and nobody was, I'm going to be Johnny Two Guns, but some people rolled exceptionally average and then wanted to bump their damage bonus, so they took stuff out of intelligence and education. So they're not the smartest, they're not stupid by any means, and they're not the most educated, but they can punch a guy. So.
Well, it is the 20s.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
credit rating.
It's something that's important. It really is.
And it's percentile based.
Yep, and your library use is also important, because that's your ability to research.
Okay, well, I'll put a 50 in library use, so that'll bring that to 75. Persuade. I'm not really a social person.
But you're a teacher?
Yeah,
So
I've got to be able to persuade students.
Yeah, and you have a doctorate, which means you did a thesis, which means you had to persuade people that you know.
Well, I was persuading them from a position of authority.
That's true. That is true.
I'll put a 35 in there and make that even 50. Credit rating. I'll dump 40 in. Make it a 75.
That's pretty good credit rating. Have you picked up any languages yet?
No. Own language is 99%.
Yeah. You're going to be able to understand any English dialect almost every single time. Even if it's some thick, heavy, messed up mash of English and something else, you'll still be able to pick up most of what they're saying.
I'm going to go with Latin because it gives you a basis for every Western language.
Almost every.
Yeah. Well, Latin or Greek. They're all one or the other. Mostly Latin.
Yeah. And the question is, where did your parents spend their time?
Which would have been Egypt, Nile region, Mediterranean.
Yeah, so probably some...
I'd say Arabic, probably.
Yeah, probably some Arabic and maybe some Greek. You never know.
Alright, I've got 75 points for these. Latin would probably be the highest just based on schoolwork. Arabic and Greek would probably be a tie. Because in that region being so close to Greece, it's probably... Yeah. So... Alright, I'll go with 35% in Latin.
Okay.
35 points, 36%.
Okay.
And then I'll split 20 each between Arabic and Greek.
Okay. Alright. Next, we're going to take your intelligence and multiply it by 10.
Okay.
And you have that to spend on skills anywhere.
Including the ones we've already done?
Yep, including the ones you've already done. So these are personal interest points. They can be spent on anything you'd like.
Well, I've got 180 more points now.
Yeah. And especially for you, since your personal interest is probably your own work, it makes sense to bump up the stuff that you've already got.
Or take more knowledges.
I'm not seeing anything specific that would... I mean, you might have some geology, you might have some chemistry, just some basic stuff.
Chemistry I would probably need just because of...
the way things are preserved.
Well, yeah, especially in the 20s.
Yeah.
Chemistry was not the involved science that it is today.
You're right.
It's very, very basic. Occult.
You can pick up some of that, definitely, because you would have picked up that along the way in a lot of your other studies anyway.
Yeah. Okay, other people in the party. Do we have anybody who's done any kind of medicine?
Nope.
First aid?
Nope.
Really?
Yep. I would say one or the other. You don't need both. Medicine might work better than first aid for your concept.
Yeah.
But first aid is going to work better for the numbers. Honestly, you start with a 30% first aid, and medicine, I believe, is a 5. So
yeah. What about? Do we have people who are good at listening and all that?
Yep. You also might consider psychology, because psychology is the current anthropology. I mean, it's the look of how people act now and how that may have come from what they did then. That might make sense. I'm not saying you have to take it, but those might make sense. So,
I'm gonna put 40 points in natural history. I have a feeling my skills are going to be off the charts compared to everybody else's.
In a lot of ways, yes, and that's okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for.
But when the Cthulhu monsters come, you're going to slap fight them to death.
You're assuming I'll be in the room.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to hand me a gun, and I'm going to be like, "The hell do I do with this?" Or they'll hand it to me. I'll accidentally shoot somebody in the leg. And
Yeah.
You should hold on to that.
Yeah.
I'll put another 40 points in medicine.
Okay.
Sure, that'll bump me to 45. I'm sure that'll help somewhere. put 30 points each in psychology and in physics.
Okay.
And then I'll put my remaining 40 points in occult.
Okay.
That's everything.
All right. So real quick, just look at this. You'll notice under hit points, it says dead, -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. They're all bold.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you're unconscious.
Okay.
So keep that in mind that you're, 13 hit points, which is a lot more than anybody else has. Your 13 hit points is really only about 11 before you're unconscious. Anything below 0, you have to be...
I'm bleeding out.
You have to be saved within a round, I believe. Mm-hmm. So, next step is determining weapons. Okay, we'll go on to the step after that then. Yeah. And this is really the end of it. This went a little quicker than I thought, mostly because we didn't have to go through weapons, and you had a pretty good idea what you want to do with skills. So that's okay. You want to figure out your marks and scars and mental disorders. You want to be sure that your name is on the left side of your sheet. So if you turn it sideways, you'll notice that there's a place for your name. And your character name goes on the top of the sheet. Yours goes on the side.
I already wrote it on the top.
Yeah. So, you have to. Your education is a 21. You have to be a minimum of 27 years old. I think we decided on 38. If you go above 40, we'll have to subtract points from strength, dex, con, or appearance.
All right.
One last thing on the second sheet, under property, should say personal property.
Yeah.
That you have $50,000 worth of personal property. It's 5 times your income. So that's kind of important.
Well, in the 1920s, that's a whole lot.
That is a ton of money. But, you're a professor. Your parents may have had some money set aside. You may have some grants and some, side projects. So that really about does it. Wow, this went a lot quicker than I thought. That's okay. Do you have any questions before we kind of close it out?
Is personal data something I need to fill out now?
Yeah, you can fill that out as we go, as you go over the next however long it takes us to get this off the ground and get started. So you'll also want to decide exactly what that $50,000 is in. It suggests 10% in savings and then 10% in stocks and bonds, which makes sense in the 1920s because the stock market's good now, not for much longer.
Another few years, it's not.
But most everybody has some sort of stocks and bonds because they can make so much money off of it. It makes sense. If you're good with money, you're going to be putting money there. You'll have to figure out exactly what that personal property means. It probably means a house and a car, maybe.
Yeah, a house, car, probably like a personal library within the house.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That kind of stuff. So, but beyond that's really all you need to know. All right, well, so that's about it for tonight. The Nerds Domain presents Masks of Neuraltep. You can always send us an email at nerdsdomain@gmail.com, or you can catch us on Twitter. I'm at Quiett, and you can catch the website at Nerds Domain. You can also catch us on Facebook at facebook.com/Nerds Domain. We want to thank Josh Shop for our music. If you enjoy our podcast, we encourage you to give us a review on iTunes and let us know what you think. We'll talk to you real soon.